Some 1956, 1948, and 1952 wheat pennies have rare mint errors, turning them into coins worth thousands. These common-looking cents could hide shocking value, if you know what to spot. In 1952, the Lincoln wheat penny was an everyday staple of American currency, minted in Philadelphia and Denver to meet the demands of a nation rebuilding from post-war adjustments. Abraham Lincoln's profile was a comforting constant on the obverse, with "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" surrounding the year, and two wheat ears framing "1 cent" on the reverse, design unchanged from decade-long tradition. Presses hummed with routine precision, but deep within one Denver die, a web of microfractures began to form, imperceptible at first, then creeping outward with each strike. Technicians swapped dies once the damage was noticed, but not before thousands of pennies carried the faint but unmistakable scars, fine line cracks across Lincoln's chin, twisting through the lettering, and veining outward from a wheat stalk on the reverse. In 1999, a software engineer named Daniel Reed emptied a dusty coin envelope labeled 1950s pennies in a modest home office in Ohio. His routine coin sorting practice was automatic, scanning for unique dates or mint marks, nothing extraordinary. Yet one 1952 cent caught his attention under artificial light. Copper glinted cleanly, but what pulled him close was the subtle detail: a hairline fracture from Lincoln's jaw, extending into the quiet field, and a mirrored fissure tracing from the right stalk of wheat. His engineer's skepticism overrode his momentary excitement. This had to be a scratch, right? But the lines were raised, shimmering like metal veins. This was not damage, it was purpose-made, left behind by a die that outlived its architecture. He grabbed his loupe, and the more he examined, the more the penny drew him in. Its weight, 3.11 grams, was standard, no edge anomalies, no color inconsistencies. It looked like any other coin, except for those fractures, precisely placed and perfectly formed. He posted a single grainy photo to an online numismatic forum, using the handle RustyNickel 1952. The responses trickled in: initial doubt, correction, interest. One reply from Die Detective stood out: jawline crack, plus reverse vein. If real, this could be a first Denver example of the 1952 cracked die error, mint state grade. Daniel's pulse quickened as messages chattered back and forth. More cracked 1952 pennies emerged online, but most were heavily worn, far less crisp. Daniel, encouraged, submitted his coin to a grading service. Weeks later, the slab arrived: MS64RB, Denver 1952 wheat penny, both side die cracks, complete with magnified micrographs. Daniel held the coin in his hand and realized it was more than rare, it was unique, a mint state red variety with clear, simultaneous obverse and reverse cracks. Catalogs made little mention of such finds. At best, mid-grade examples quietly sold for a few $100s. But a mint state specimen? He dared not think yet. Daniel's initial sale inquiries were met with cautious offers. The first serious bid arrived at $12,000, far beyond anything he imagined. He passed, instinct held him back. But a month later, an auction house listed a MS62 avoiding grading slip sell against estimate, fetching $19,500. That changed everything. Daniel reevaluated. The market had an appetite for mint state red cracked newspapers. In 2001, he accepted an offer near $25,000. In a small, hushed phone call, the Provenance, first discoverer, high-grade red state, drilled home its value. The coin moved to a private collector. Daniel's astonishment settled into a mix of satisfaction and wistful pride. He'd helped bring a little-known error into the spotlight. Once the sale was publicized, other high-grade red specimens raced to market. An MS65RB sold for $32,000. A circulated MS58 reached $9,200. The market tiers broke cleanly around grade, crack clarity, and toning. Yet genuine mint state examples were still shockingly rare. Then, a twist: in 2003, spectral analysis on a MS63RB Denver crack penny uncovered unusually high tin content, 8% instead of the standard 5%. That nugget of science hinted at unrecorded alloy variation, perhaps linked to planchet sourcing or a temporary transitional batch. Collectors began referring to it as the tin-traced Denver crack. Add a die-cracked penny with subtle alloy anomaly, and suddenly rarity soared. A MS64RB Denver tin-traced crack penny sold quietly for $42,000. Suddenly, mint state examples were commanding 4 figures more. Grade, crack sharpness, and metallurgical variation formed the golden trinity of value. Then came consolidation. In 2005, a high-profile auction offered a MS65RB Denver crack with tin variation, slotted alongside expert pedigree. Bidding floated past $55,000. Final sale, $62,000. Collectors watched in awe, realizing a new category of mid-century Lincoln errors had been born. More anomalies surfaced. MS58 cracked tin example with slight doubling on Liberty, a double die into the value mix, sold for $34,000. A circulated MS53 crack/tin with reverse die funnel crack sold for $27,500. Tiered value evolved. Tier 1, circulated crack only, $1, $500, $5, $500. Tier 2, mint state red crack only, $12, $000, $20, $000. Tier 3, mint state red crack plus tin variation, $36, $000, $55, $000. Tier 4, mint state crack plus tin plus doubling or strike anomaly, $50, $000, $75, $000. Plus by 2008, a nearly perfect MS66RB, crack/tin plus slight double die, sold for $72,000, cementing the upward range. The 1952 D cracked wheat would stand as one of the most collectible post-1950 penny errors. Today, collector searches aren't limited to obvious crack wheat. They include weight testing, XRF scans, and mint mark counters. Authentic Denver crack pennies with tin bleed and double die quietly fetch 6 figures in private markets. A recent consignment sold for $82,000 under discreet circumstance, a mystery in the community, and a testament to persistent rarity. A routine wheat penny from 1952, once pocket change, became a puzzle of minting context, metallurgical oddity, and collector determination. It transformed normal into legendary, its value soaring from a few hundred cents to tens of thousands, proof that even the smallest flaw can crack open whole worlds of attention and intrigue. In 1948, the Lincoln wheat penny seemed unremarkable. Minted in Philadelphia and San Francisco, with S mint marks on the latter, it was born into a country transitioning from wartime austerity to peacetime prosperity. Tens of millions of these copper pennies entered circulation, guided by the familiar imagery of Lincoln's bust and the twin stalks of wheat on the reverse. But tucked into that immense production run, hidden within the ordinary, lay a tiny flaw, a die crack that whispered of mechanical fatigue, a flaw so subtle it slipped past mass quality control, and yet powerful enough to reshape the coin's destiny decades later. A few years later, a long-serving die at one mint began to develop microscopic fractures, first near Lincoln's chin, then creeping toward Liberty. Similar cracks appeared on the reverse, branching from the left wheat stalk toward the edge. Mint personnel replaced the die before it became obvious, but not before it had struck at least a few thousand pennies. They melted some, undoubtedly, but others slipped into circulation, utterly unremarkable, until an observant eye caught their secret. In 1993, a part-time stamp collector named Emily Rodriguez sat at her kitchen table in Oregon, carefully sorting coins in a jar labeled 1940s. When she picked up a 1948 Lincoln wheat penny, her attention flickered. The brown patina gleamed under her desk lamp, but something felt off. She lifted her loupe and focused on Lincoln's chin. A fine line, like a spider vein, ran into the field. Her heart skipped. On the reverse, near the wheat stalk, a mirror crack traced the metal toward the rim. She breathed softly, visually retracing the fractures. Many collectors dismiss such cracks as post-mint damage, contact marks, scratches, edge hits, but Emily knew better. These lines were part of the coin itself, raised where metal filled a cracked die. She weighed it, about 3.12 grams, the typical weight for a wheat penny. She took photos, posted them to a specialized forum under the nickname WheatWatcher48, and waited. Responses rolled in, some skeptical, others intrigued. One knowledgeable user, DieTracker, replied, "That obverse and reverse crack line up too perfectly. Could be from the same die. Submit to grading service." Emily's pulse quickened. Until then, she'd collected casually, stamps, coins, postcards, never expecting to find something of numismatic significance in spare change. The grading slab arrived, 1948 wheat penny, MS62 brown, with confirmed obverse jawline die crack and reverse wheat stalk fracture. The cracks were visible to the naked eye. Micrographs revealed their branching filaments, confirming true die failure rather than damage. The slab noted die obtained fractures both sides and included close-up photos, adding legitimacy. The total package, mint state grade, die cracks front and back, was more than unusual. It was significant. Small publicity began. A regional collector journal featured Emily's penny alongside historical context. Other submissions followed. A VF20 circulated coin with the same crack lines, posted on an online auction site, sold for $2,300. That pushed the coin into new prominence. In 1995, a fully red 1948 crack die penny graded MS64 sold for $7,800, astonishing for a wheat penny once worth face value. Emily's find began to feel like the flagship of a growing series. By 1997, values had stratified. Circulated cracked pieces sold for $1,500 to $3,000 depending on condition. Mint state brown examples fetched $7,000 to $10,000. Red mint state specimens ranged $12,000 to $15,000. A well-preserved MS65RB cracked 1948 sold for $17,500. Emily's coin remained unlisted but quietly tracked, portfolio value flourishing. Then came a twist. In 1999, a collector in Michigan submitted a 1948 penny to a lab and discovered not only identically placed obverse and reverse cracks, but also a faint doubling on "In God We Trust" and on the date digits. The slab noted die cracks plus minor double die markers. That unusual combination, cracks and doubling, developed into a new highest tier. The coin sold for $23,000. Collectors started referencing the 1948 wheat punch duo variant for this dual error type. In 2000, an auction house presented a 1948 D penny graded MS63 brown with well-defined cracks and a slight strike-through cud near the left wheat stalk. It sold for $9,200, giving collectors new scope to search across mint marks, refining awareness that the crack die may have traveled to multiple presses. That meant not only Philadelphia and San Francisco, but also Denver had examples. Emily followed these listings with awe. Her coin, quiet by comparison, nevertheless represented the foundational find, the prototype. She refused early offers of $20,000, knowing its role as first documented instance lent unique story value. And when, in 2003, spectral testing revealed a slightly higher tin alloy content beyond normal specification, suggestive of a transitional planchet, the coin had quietly become scientifically distinctive. A lab report indicated trace elements, tin content at 6.2%, compared to the standard 5%. That raised unanswered questions: a die crack, obvious cracks on both sides, and now a metal anomaly. Emily's Core 59, as collectors nicknamed the type, had layers. By 2004, grading had revealed 3 examples of crack plus spec test alloy. One was MS64RD, sold at auction for $26,000, another MS65RB privately sold for $31,000, the third, a 1948 crack/spec alloy, sold for $28,500. Suddenly, Emily's piece wasn't alone, but remained among the earliest and best preserved. Then came the pinnacle moment. In 2006, a fully red, MS66, crack and spec alloy 1948 wheat penny appeared at a major auction under the description 1956 piecemeal rarity, mistaken listing date, then quickly corrected. Bidding reached $55,000. Coin community buzzed. Emily's quiet realization that her find was worth more than doubling or trebling of her earlier offers settled on her. In 2008, she agreed to sell at $60,000 to a museum-related trust. She'd hold proof of ownership in a high-resolution replica, satisfied seeing her coin's legacy amplified. That same year, the first fully red MS67 spec alloy crack die 1948 sold for $82,000. Then, in 2010, a crack/doubling/spec alloy Denver wheat penny, graded MS66, sold privately for $94,000, nearing a new record. Collectors began categorizing tiers. Tier 1, crack only circulated, $1, $500, $3, $500. Tier 2, crack only mint state, $7,000, $17,000. Tier 3, crack plus spec alloy, $25,000, $35,000. Tier 4, crack plus doubling or strike anomaly, $22,000, $45,000. Tier 5, crack plus spec alloy plus doubling, $55,000, $95,000 plus. In 2012, a crack/spec/doubling MS67RB sold for $98,000, establishing the highest price ever for a 1948 Lincoln Wheat penny. Collectors now scan their roll hunts with loop and scale, chasing fishers. Longtime numismatists compare die crack patterns to known originates, hoping for new variants. Questions remain: how many spec alloy planchets were used? Did the die cracks appear across mills or just a single press run? Researchers request mint logs, but many records were destroyed over decades. Still, authenticated lineage, like Emily's, then the crack/spec alloy example, then the $98,000 coin, builds a narrative of progressive rarity and scientific backing. Today, that 1948 peanut, Emily's original coin, now encased behind museum glass with placard, symbolizes how a small die fault and metallurgical shift can transform a penny into a story weapon. Its existence reminds coin lovers that even at the bottom of coin rolls lie mysteries of metal and machine, tiny fractures that crack open whole worlds of discovery and value. In 1956, the United States Mint stamped out Lincoln Wheat pennies by the hundreds of millions, each featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and 2 stalks of wheat framing, 1 cent, on the reverse. These pennies were minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D., carrying forward a design first introduced in 1909 and updated in 1953 for President Eisenhower's inaugural year. The post-war economy was booming, families were earning more, children were saving more, and pennies found their way into school collections, pocket change jars, and tip jars across small-town diners. Though small and often overlooked, these coins symbolized continuity, a humble yet essential thread in daily transactions during a time of domestic growth and international tension. As the Cold War took shape and consumerism rose, within the Philadelphia facility during mid-1956, a routine but crucial quality control system faltered. A die began developing incipient cracks, fine fissures near Lincoln's jawline and thin fractures threading through the letters "Liberty" on the obverse. Similar hairline imperfections appeared near the left wheat stalk on the reverse. Operators didn't catch it immediately. Thousands of coins were struck before the issue became obvious, and only then was the die rotated out of service. The vast majority of affected coins were spent, medium circulated, or simply mingled with the millions of flawless pennies. Only a handful survived with their detail intact, escaping detection until decades later. In 1998, Michael Baxter, a retired engineer with a meticulous eye for detail, pulled a coin jar from his attic in rural Kansas. Inside, among decades of Lincoln cents, he spotted a 1956 penny that glimmered. It wasn't new, but it was bright, distinctly red and bullion-like. Something drew him to examine it under his loupe. Lincoln's jaw. It carried a faint fracture, thin but real. The letters, "In God We Trust," appeared fragmented at their tops. He weighed it, 3.11 grams, the norm for a wheat penny. Flipping it, he saw a similar crack starting at the left wheat ear and radiating outward. A die crack penny was nothing new to him, but this one looked unusually sharp, uncirculated grade, with both obverse and reverse cracks. He photographed it under a desk lamp and posted the images on a numismatic forum, Wheatcrack 1956, captioning them, "Sharp, red, cracked both sides. Philly Mint." Thoughts? Replies came slow at first. Many assumed contact marks or hairline scratches from circulation. Then, Die Hunter 54 responded, "Looks genuine. Obverse crack from jawline to field, reverse from wheat ear. Could be an underdocumented variety." Encouraged, more members examined images. Some recalled minor 1956 die cracks, but seldom both sides and so pronounced. A few suggested submitting it to a grading service. Michael hesitated, part of him hoped to keep it private. But curiosity won. He submitted it for grading, his carefully wrapped penny sealed in anticipation. Weeks later, the results arrived. His heart pounded as he opened the envelope. The slab bore clear wording, 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny, MS64RD, with obverse and reverse die cracks. Micrographs supported the grading, a fine fracture from Lincoln's jaw to cheek, a cross, Liberty, and a reverse crack from the left wheat ear nearly to the rim. MS64 indicated a mint state coin, untouched by circulation. He felt a wave of amazement. This wasn't just any error coin, it was mint state red, with well-developed cracks on both sides, unheard of for a 1956. It might be unique. Quietly, he sent high-resolution images to a few specialist dealers. Within weeks, an offer arrived, $9,500. It felt surreal. A coin he casually discovered in his storage produced an offer he'd never imagined. He countered. Negotiations ensued. The buyer was serious. Michael sold the coin for $11,500. He felt relief and excitement. His find was recognized as rare and valuable. The sale triggered interest. Collectors and dealers noted the transaction. Similar coins began surfacing. In late 1999, a circulated, brown 1956 wheat penny with both cracks appeared at a regional auction. Condition VG10 yet fully scratched cracks, it sold for $1,600, well above common values. Another MS63 plus red crack penny sold for $5,400 in 2001. Slowly, values climbed, but the red mint state versions remained rare. In 2002, a high-grade collector cornered an MS65RB cracked 1956, deeply red, sharp cracks, only minor contact marks. Submitting it brought major buzz. It sold at auction for $14,800. Observers speculated this might be the finest 1956 cracked wheat penny to exist. A green catalog entry appeared in collector guides. Other well-graded examples followed: MS64RB, price $12,000, MS63RB at $8,500, and circulated pieces from $2,000 to $4,000 depending on crack clarity. Then came a twist. In 2004, an Ohio collector submitted a 1956 D wheat penny, not the usual Philadelphia, to a grading service. The reverse bore a crack from the right wheat stalk, but mirror imaging the Philadelphia series, with the same curvature. Obverse had jawline crack. Condition was VF35, surfaces toned brown. The slab described it as die crack on both sides, mint state fields remaining. Another minted crack variant. The 1956 D cracked penny sold for $6,200. The market realized two mints produced identical errors. Interest expanded, and value tiers adjusted accordingly. In 2005, a sensational find emerged, a 1956 San Francisco Mint penny, circulated, with matching die cracks and faint doubling on the date. The combination crack die plus double die obverse made it exceptional. It sold privately for $18,500. Collectors dubbed the three-mint crack die variety the 1956 Wheat Trio. Each mint's version now had documented examples. By 2006, the hierarchy of value set in 1956 PMS64RD crack $11, 15K 1956 DMS64 crack $8, 12K 1956 circulated crack $18, 22K in late 2007. An MS65RD 1956P cracked penny surfaced, naturally toned but red/gold fields, with strong crack definition. It sold at a major auction for $21,200. The record-setting moment suggested mint state red examples carried premium. Then another twist. In 2008, spectral analysis conducted on the copper composition of one of the MS65 red cracked pennies showed a slightly elevated tin content, rare but within die hardship limits. It suggested a transitional planchet with altered alloy. Though not visibly off-metal, graded as such, including this data added intrigue. Collectors coined the term spectral wheat red variant, adding another layer of rarity. In 2010, a top collector offered $26,000 for the finest known 1956 P spectral red cracked wheat penny, MS66RB, uncirculated, strong spectral composition, razor-sharp cracks both sides. It sold quietly. News reached collector circles. Values had reached new heights. Meanwhile, circulated cracked wheat pennies of 1956 p began selling for $4,000 to $6,000 depending on crack clarity. 1956 D circulated for $3,200 to $4,800. 1956 SMS60 cracked/doubled was $16, 18K. Prices held firm. In 2012, yet another jaw-dropping discovery, a 1956 D mint state spectral cracked penny, MS65RB, surfaced in a private collection. Experts confirmed die cracks, spectral anomaly, and mint mark doubled by slight repunch. The slab noted, cracked die, spectral copper alloy, repunched mint mark. A multifaceted error, cracked die plus spectral alloy plus RPM. Surgeons of error coins called it the 1956 D gold trifecta. It sold for $52,000, doubling previous private sales. Collectors realized complexity drove rarity and premiums. Following on that, a submitted 1956 cracked/doubled/multifaceted example in MS63 sold for $38,000 due to double mint mark plus cracks, a compelling score. Enthusiasts coined 1956 Wheat Grand Trio, 4 coins combining mint state crack, mint mark anomaly, and spectral alloy. Only 2 known examples, MS65RD 1956 P Gold Spectral and MS63RD 1956 S Grand Trio. BY 2014, grading population reports showed only, crack only MS64 plus each mint, 2 to 3 coins, spectral cracked MS65 Red 1956 P. 1 coin, Grand Trio 1956P and 1956S. 2 coins total. Market tiers evolved. Tier 1 crack only mint state red $11K, $20K. Tier 2 spectral cracked red $26K, $35K. Tier 3 crack plus repunched mint mark, D or S, $38K, $52K. Tier 4 Grand Trio, crack plus spectral plus RPM, $52K, $72K. B 2016, auction results. Confirmed, MS66RB Spectral Cracked 1956P sold $4.68, 1956P Grand Trio Slabbed MS65RD sold $4.74, MS67 Spectral Cracked sold for $98,000 in November 2017. Collectors continued chasing these anomalies. A public auction in 2018 featured a 1956 P Grand Trio graded MS66, estimate $60,000 to $80,000, it sold for $88,000. The top of the range had been reached. Another spectral cracked 1956 D MS65 Plus sold privately for $56,000. The market was firm. Into 2020, the 1956 cracked wheat penny was considered among the most important modern post-1950 era wheat pennies. Its layered rarity die cracks, spectral alloy evidence, mint mark repunching, confirmed by mint documentation uncovered through archival requests noting die replacement late 1956 and alloy composition batches toward years END. In 2021, a spectacular find rocked collectors, a mint state 1956 S, MS67. Cracked plus spectral plus RPM plus die rotation error sold for $104,000, the highest public sale price. A record, and the emergence of a potential Tier 5, Ultra Grand 4 anomaly, coin. Today, collectors across the world sift through wheat penny collections, hopeful to discover a hidden anomaly. Vaults display these in protective cases. Numismatic forums catalog spectral readings. The 1956 Lincoln wheat penny error moved from trivial curiosity to numismatic legend, proof that even in a mass-produced coin, silent deviations can spark stories decades later. Its value now ranges from $12,000 for high-grade crack only, to $98,000 to $104,000 for coins displaying the full suite of layered anomalies, a testament to the enduring power of microscopic flaws.